Alright, so a couple weekends ago, my dad was telling me about his first Halloween, like a millennia ago, and he's saying how he just is a Viking, and I was like, what the fuck, and then I blacked out, then I was there with him, because Dad has this power of, like, putting you in his own memories, which is, like, his most fucked up power, because, like, he was at the Holocaust. So anyway, so I'm, like a ghost who can't actually see me, and I see Dad, and he's, like, only this tall, and he's only, like, 600,000 years old, so he's a youngling still, and he just is a Viking, and he has, like, a pretend sword, and then he's, like, walking on the street, and this big kid, this was back when Dad was, like, self-conscious about himself, and this big kid pushed him on the ground, and like when he hit the ground, like the earth tremored, and Dad like stood up and he grew to like this 6 foot tall ripped man. Like this is his dad form, but back then he didn't know how to control that, and he turned into a Viking, and that's what his costume was. And the kid's like, he was black by the way, and the kid's like, yo, what do you want, motherfucker? Dad's like, yo, he cuts off his head, and the kid's head goes flying, and like Dad like puts one of his horns on his helmet, and he's walking down the street, and there's this mom, and she's carrying like her little 2-year-old in like a pumpkin costume, and my dad just like goes up and she like smashes her shoulder because he just poked her, but her shoulder like collapses from the weight, and so he's like, give her the pumpkin, because he loves pumpkins, so he just eats the pumpkin, and he realizes it's just a baby, he just like spits it out, he's like, it's good! He eats it because that's when you develop the taste for fetuses and young children. So anyway, the woman's like crying her eyes out because her kid just got eaten and her shoulder's completely collapsed and shattered. And she just like punches Dad in the chest, and like her punch is so weak that it like hits Dad, that it just hits Dad, and the energy is like put right back into her fist, so her hand just explodes. And Dad's like, it's your turn! And he pulls out another sword, so he has 2 now, and he stabs her in like the boobs and like rips them open and takes the silicone out and shoves it down her throat, and she chokes on it and like just dies right there. And Dad like rips off her head and puts it on his other horn, and so he keeps walking down the street. Then he sees this really, really big house, and it's like he knows they're gonna give good candy there, so he like he goes to knock on the door, but he smashes the door down, and the guy comes out of his out of the living room and is like, what the fuck's going on? Dad's like, it's gone! That's where the phrase came from. Holy shit. So anyway, he like starts walking in the house, the guy's like, stand the fuck back, and he pulls out a shotgun, and Dad hates guns at this age, because like, that's how the original like granddad was killed, by a gun. So anyway, so he like, the guy keeps walking towards the man, and the man's like, fuck back, I'll shoot you. So the guy shoots Dad, and the pellets bounce off, and the guy's like screaming like, get the fuck back, and Dad just like walks up to him really quietly, puts the barrel in his mouth, and he's like, I'm gonna blow you away! And then Dad like grabs the trigger and fires a shotgun into his mouth, and like catches all the pellets and spits them back out, and it's like twice the speed of the normal shotgun. He just rips this guy's head off. And so the guy's like on the ground like in his death throes, like twitching, and his pregnant wife is just sitting on the couch screaming her head off, and she pulls out a gun to kill herself because she doesn't want to like feel the wrath of Dad, because like this area was warned that Dad existed in this part, and so she pulls out a gun to shoot herself, and before she could, Dad threw one of his swords and it just impaled her in the chest, and she's like screaming because her arm's caught here and the gun's like pointing away from her. And so Dad just walks up to her, like rips her chest open, and like takes the baby out, and just puts it in his pants, and then just walks away. And he's like screaming in pain. And it's like, shut up! And he just takes another sword and throws it at her face, and just rips her face off, and she dies like a normal death. And so he's walking out of the house, and he hears this girl crying. He's like, what the fuck's that coming? He looks down, and it's like the girl in his pants is crying. So he just looks down, and all he hears like a rumbling noise and like a weird like squishing, bone crushing noise, and then he sees this like erection rip out of his pants, and the girl's like impaled on it, and he starts like pulling her off. He's like, it feels good on my dick! He starts like putting the girl and like masturbating with this like 2-year-old girl, sorry, not 2-month-old fetus, and so he's like fully erect now. It's like 10 miles long, and it like rips through the house. And he starts walking down the street, and houses are like falling down as he's turning around. Then he sees this like other really, really nice looking house, but because he's Dad, he doesn't remember where he lives, and it was his house. And so he kicks down the door, and he's like, give me the fucking candy! And then Granddad comes downstairs, and he's like, the fuck do you want? And then Dad's like, I'm sorry, Granddad. He's like, you're not sorry! And Granddad pulls out a 3,000 caliber machine gun, and it shoots Dad like 1,000,000 times in like 1 second, and Dad just explodes, and that's why now, like nowadays, he's only a couple million years old, because at that moment he died. So then he was reborn like 2 years later, just by like, because he's Dad. Even though he's dead, he's still technically alive, because Dad is everything. And that's Dad's first recollection of Halloween.